Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to my reaction channel. Today we'll be reacting to the October Officer Club Championship. Um, okay, jokes aside, this is the intro to my sort of analysis, not necessarily analysis, but more of just autopsy of how I won this October OCC. So, spoiler alert, I did win this tournament. My fourth tournament win of the year. Another 500 USD, nice prize. And I contribute this win, not just, like, I think I played well, for sure. But I think my lineup here was certainly unorthodox and certainly paid off. Now, I did a separate video going over the decks. You can see that on my channel as well. Should be the video before this one. And now you might have watched the stream with the casters, and the casters are incredibly entertaining, but I think there is some value to having a higher ranked player and the player who made the moves explain sort of the thoughts behind my actions, and not just the actions in game themselves, but also the meta actions, what decks I brought, what the order I brought the decks in, the decks I banned, etc., etc. And exclusive content. I recorded my quarterfinal game against Ozzy, which was not on stream. However, I recorded it with my live commentary as I was playing it, which will be up next. I'll edit in that video, and then I will come back and sort of briefly go over my semifinal game and my finals game, and how those culminated in me winning this tournament. So, yeah, as we see, this is the top 8 bracket. Tang versus Dio. Dio, new player to the OCC. Tang won the season by basically a handful of points. He passed me in the last 10 minutes because I was helping my sister move. Then we have Noen versus Birdo, two very strong players, two regulars of the OCC. Myself versus Ozzy. Now, Ozzy, you might not recognize him. He's only been in one OCC before, I believe. However, Ozzy is a friend slash teammate. I don't know the exact relationship with Tang and Artemisia, and was actually one of the players who was banned for account sharing along with Tang. So they played in the June OCC. They got very close to getting top 6 in the June season to play in the July OCC, and then they were banned from the August OCC and the September OCC. So, from the perspective of somebody just exclusively watching top 8 tournaments, you might think that this is a relatively new player. However, they are not. They play a lot of high-level decks, they train with high-level players, and they've certainly been in and around the top 10 on ladder quite a bit. And then at the bottom we have Ari Big Ben, my teammate, back after a very long hiatus from top 8s, and Killswitch, who is becoming a tournament regular, just like Birdo, Noen, myself, Tang. So a very, very interesting top 8, and yeah, I mean, as we know, I won, but how did I get there? Let's get into it. I will start the my quarterfinal coverage now, and I'll catch you. Well, I will currently see you next, covering my semifinal game. So enjoy my quarterfinal game. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. I may or may not upload this, but this is my first round of the OCC. It's not being played on stream, which means I'm going to record it and potentially upload it. We will see. Cards. It's a bit concerning. So, I would have gone over the decks, but bam, I'm getting the challenge on right away. I'm going to start with my Soviet Germany. Maybe I'll just like attach this at the end of my analysis, like my deck overview. So hopefully I'll do that when I do that, and then I don't really have to go over my decks, but I banned his Jagro for obvious reasons. Um, that was sort of the whole lineup idea, which leaves him with Brit Air and US Germany, and he banned my Brit Air, which leaves me with Soviet Germany control and US France control. Game 1, US Germany versus Soviet Germany. Two pretty different decks. First Rifles is just absolutely insane. Sickle beats 30 seconds. Keeping Train is not bad, but I do kind of want a 2-drop, or maybe a Scorched. Second Rifles are good as well. Pardon the crunch. I have my breakfast right next to me, but I will refrain from eating it until after. So it starts with the Devils, which is annoying. In practicing this deck against Birdo, I think I went 5-0. Like, I don't think I lost a game. There was a couple close ones. When I got, like, particularly bad hands. But I mean, none of them I got, like, super steamrolled. Like, I could 100% lose if I got super steamrolled. There was a game where I had a terrible hand. Just all my expensive cards. And he had a really good opener. And then he just sort of ran out of cards to follow up. Like, he ran out of Shermans. And then I started slamming down my big guys and eventually made a comeback. Which can 100% happen. Seeing the half track early is really good. Because it means he runs 2 half tracks in the deck. So if 272nd can stick, that's usually game over. Because if I get a stall into the front line, it almost literally is game over. And even just like having Stalin on board, he doesn't have Blitzkriegs. So that's going to die to Sickle. Interesting. Start with Sickle and probably just play second Rifles. Placement does not really matter. Guess I'll play it here. Get double guard on the right. That way, if I play a unit, it's double guarded. There's not really any units in my deck, which I want. Or like need double guarded. Yeah, we can do it, it's fine. These actually deal 5 damage. I can also just sudden, obviously. Yeah, I mean, getting a unit to the front line is just good. Once my discard starts coming online, we can snowball pretty quickly if he doesn't hit Shermans. Well, not doesn't hit Shermans, but like can't get Shermans in. So this actually trades. I'm not sure why he would make this. Oh wait, of course it dies. That was silly of me. Zukov. If I Zukov into an 845th, which is probably about a 50-50. Yeah, I think it actually is a 50-50. I have 272nd engineers. 3 845ths. So actually I think it's a 60% chance maybe. We got it. Hit that. Get the second rifle stand. I could just root out those all the way. I lose my 845th. I could also do move up Scorched Yak, which seems pretty good. Probably want to move this one up, right? Well, not necessarily. trade into the big one. Alrighty. I mean, probably just Annihilation, the big one. Second, number 2 is gone. And Rudo should just end the game here. I could even like... Well, the problem with Partisans is it leaves him... Oh wait, I guess this gets buffed, so I needed the Sickle top deck. That's very fortunate. There's also several Wolfpack options that would essentially end the game. So I am assuming the last card in his hand is Sherman, just because he hasn't played any yet and he runs 4 in the deck. It is possible. He still has 5, 6 US Blitzers in the deck, so it's not like he's hard locked out of Sherman. Of course. Hopefully we get like a 272nd or something. I think I'd take Train out of all of these. And I'm gonna even play out. Like, it's possible he has Stars. But Stars doesn't deal with this board super well, per se. And it means he's probably not Sherman in top deck Red Devils. Is this double Sherman time? Not double Sherman. Okay. That's fine then. I could just, like, take the front line. This summons... Same front, yeah. So this is 4. Yeah, I can do this. Hellcut's really annoying. What's the last card in his hand? Do I just double trade? Pass? Like, obviously I can just get a US 6 drop in the front line. There's a handful of things that's not actually good into. He has 1 combat engineer as his last 1 drop in the deck, if memory serves. So playing Flampanzer challenges all sorts of tank, like the Werbles and the 35Ts. I'm just gonna do this, right? There's a couple cards in this deck that can kill this. Like, get value out of hitting into this, like First Rifles or 5th Rangers. But it does still prevent the support line. So now I can do trade into a Red Banner for a 6 drop in the support line. Do I start hitting him in the face? Probably not. I'm assuming one of these guys is Styes, based on how long he's been holding on to it. Where's the 1st Marines? 2nd dive bombing. This is probably the best buy the sword I'm gonna get. Yeah, I mean, he has a pretty good chance of finding a Sherman. It's a 1 in 4. He has a 25% chance of finding Sherman. But that doesn't, like with Wolfpack Annihilation, Partisans in hand, I don't see a way he can win this game. It's the 25%. I mean, I don't even need to do that. I can just Wolfpack him. Save the Annihilation for the last 1st rifles. Kill this. Grab a Sherman, because why not? Yo, look at this. I'm the US mid-range now. Honestly, I think I might just Wolfpack him. Let's take it out. He has 1 more we can do it in the deck. So he could be at 9 health. It's not worth doing anything drastic like Partisans hit him to 4. And that's game. Just in time to find the 272nd. Alright, up 1-0. And now we have US France. The crux of the lineup. Now, it should be good into air. Like, and not anything crazy, like guaranteed win into air. Anything like that. Nothing's a guaranteed win into air, basically. But it should be favored slightly into air. The US mid-range, I played this matchup against Birdo probably like 10 times yesterday. Maybe not 10 times, like maybe 8 or 7 times. I lost every single time. However, full mulligan, that's a good sign. This is like already 2 really good cards, and I think I send back the Hellcat. Yeah, that's fine. However, Birdo knows the deck in and out, and was played in a very particular way. And I think that's just a particular way I'm not necessarily expecting to see from him. Do I patrol that? I do want to research on 3, I think. So I'm going to patrol this. Okay, so I guess the 4 draws. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing yet. Combat. It's kind of annoying. Yeah, I'm just gonna battery. That's very good. Island hopping is an incredibly important card in this deck. Do I play United We Stand? there's a good question. I think I do. And I think I use Hellcat instead of DFA. That's really bad. This card is like, if this card's in the bottom like 5, that increases my win rate such a drastic amount. Double 35T. Come on. That's really, really bad. Can I tank it? It's quite possible I can tank it. And regardless, I think I have to go for this, because the alternative is DFA and pray. I think I do gunship. Okay, well, so what's actually better? Gunship, DFA, sniped? So high altitude bombing is just straight up dead unless I hit both of these. Yeah, he's not stupid. Okay, well. Yeah, I had a pretty decent hand, but he had best case scenario hand, so we're 1-1. And now we go on to air. I'm disappointed that game didn't go on slightly longer because I'm curious to see if he would have played the matchup properly. Just based on that hand, it's pretty difficult to see if he had a firm understanding of the matchup, or if, like, anybody would play the way he played. And it's correct to do so. I'm not taking away from him, but it's like, it doesn't really reveal much. Did he pick the, no, never mind. I thought he picked the wrong deck for a second. Got scared. I saw the Japan. Do I ever keep stars? Keeping battery might be a little much. Should look for like DFAs. Maybe a second. Well, or not DFAs, defended depths. DIDs. Okay, Fiat, that's very good for me. Gunship or patrol. There's no destruction effects in the deck. So the benefit of patrol is if he moves up a unit, I can kill it. The benefit of gunship is it can go face if I'm in a situation where I can theoretically burn him. Also, there's a slight possibility, like getting the healing in if I never get an opportunity to play gunship and I need the healing. Gunship is better. I feel like patrol is just better more often. I don't think it's going to matter like 90% of the time, but... Okay, double Fiat. And the air defense draw, that's good. Interesting. Do I gunship the Piracy? Like, I don't want that to get to the front line, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily correct for him to... Well, I can't avoid the risk of that getting to the front line. I don't think I want to hold up air defense. single close air support. That's very odd. I mean, I guess he's playing around Hellcat, which I did actually just draw. I could DFA it. And I think I do. I think this is correct. Because if he plays bombers, I kind of want to get a Hellcat to hit a bomber. Yeah, Charlene's perfectly fine. I'm going to hold on to the phony war until he plays Lend-Lease. Skeeto, that's probably just going to get hit by Defend in Depth. Yeah. Here's the Lend-Lease. I can phony to draw 3. Not the most exciting thing ever. I can gunship phony for 4. It's probably better. So I'm assuming this is a Ultra he has up. Do I just kill it with Hellcat? I could also just hold up Counter-Strike, pass. That seems bad. I think I hold up Counter-Strike anyways. It's possible he might try to just, like, throw out a unit early. So we do this first to trigger Ultra. Do we do Stars and Defend in Depth? That seems weak. But the alternative is to, like, Stars pass. So if he has Spitfire, now might be the turn to let it rip. No. Okay, he's going in. Could just, like, Hab or hold up air defense. That's a big guy. That is Lend-Lease number 2. Man, I have found 0 healing. So that needs to go. The question is using battery better? There's a very slight risk I die to Spitfire, Finest Arrow, 4th cast, Marion Nostrum if I don't hold up. Like if I do Seaborn, Cross of Lorraine. I think that is a risk I have to take. Just to get this out of my hand. Like, he needs to have 4 exact cards, all of which are 1-ofs in his deck at this point. Also, the worry about holding both of these up is he just does HMS. Ouch. Okay. Do I ever just gunship it? Do I gunship face? Do I not play gunship? He has no way of killing me next turn. That's for sure. But do I play it out? I think I probably play it out. I don't think killing him is going to be what's going to win me the game. I think it's running him out of cards. So he's out of close air supports. Okay. Albacore number 2, Swordfish number 2, Empire Strikes. Probably just gonna heal and then draw. Why did we stand is fine. Oh, I can kill both, that's really good. I probably just want to patrol. No need to give him more. Okay, so here comes the Spitfire. Can't kill me. Hold up Counter Strike. Do United We Stand DFA hit face? So what's left in the deck for him? He has HMS, Empire Strikes, Wrath, Fiat, Swordfish. HMS, Empire Strikes, Wrath, Fiat, Swordfish, and what? A Convoy? Yeah, a Convoy. So I think we win, despite this being a very close call. I have 4 healing cards in my bottom 11. Because he has no more ways of buffing these. Empire Strikes does 4, the Bomber does 5, the other one dies to Counter Strike. This kills both of them, thanks for the healing. Wasn't actually necessary because I have a response to both Wrath. Well, I suppose if he does Wrath and Fiat on the same turn, I couldn't kill the Fiat. But I mean, the odds I didn't draw healing or removal in like 2 cards is basically non-existent. Last card in his hand is Convoy, which means he loses. I don't die, I just fade away. Which is a pretty accurate response to how he is going to lose this game. 2-1, we are on to the semifinals, which means I make it to stream. I'm very happy this deck did not throw. I love this deck so much. It feels so gross to play. Yeah, so that's where this recording will stop, because the rest of my games will be on stream. And yeah, this might actually go in the middle segment of a future video. If you're seeing this, it might be part of a middle segment of a future video breaking down the tournament and my deck lists. Might go over the decks, then put this in, and then go over the remaining 2 games on stream. But we will see. Anyways, thanks for watching. This probably isn't the end of the video, but thanks for watching. And man, we're in the semis. Let's go and see how the rest of the tournament is turning out. Alright, welcome back. And yeah, as we see, this is the result. I beat Ozzy. Killswitch beat Ari Big Ben in a very close 2-1 series, which was very good news for me, because Ari Big Ben brought 2 sort of heavier US decks, which would have been a bit of a struggle for me, whereas Killswitch essentially brought the exact lineup I was looking to target. So very fortunate for me that I got to go into Killswitch, and on the other side we have Tang beating Dio 2-1. That game went off stream. No one beating Birdo 2-1. Birdo brought very similar decks as me. We practiced together. The one difference is he brought Germany, Italy. I brought Soviet, Germany. And yeah, it was that Germany, Italy deck that just couldn't find a win for Birdo again. Very unfortunate for him. I thought he played very, very well, but the cards just lined up against him in that game 3. And then we had Tang beating Noen 2-1, which means Tang is sitting in the winners finals. So I was headed into this game against Killswitch pretty confident in my decks. Well, sorry, very, very confident in my decks mashing up into Killswitch. I mean, my series against Ozzy was a little closer than I would have liked, but not necessarily closer than expected. And I have an axe to grind with Tang, and not anything personal. Although I do believe that he should have received a harsher punishment for cheating. But that aside, if you don't know, my track record against Tang in OCCs is 0-5. I have never beaten him in a set in an OCC before. Also, he has beaten me several times this year for getting rank 1. So I just sort of wanted to... My goal when I saw Tang in the finals was not just get to the finals, because I obviously want to get to the finals, but my goal was I want to beat Tang. And this time I'm just feeling confident, and Killswitch, no offense, but you're just sort of in my way. Like, I went into my match against Killswitch just sort of thinking, like, this is just sort of like, I have to, like, go through the hoops on my way to get to the finals, where I'm going to play against Tang. And I believe this will be the first time we've ever met in the final. Spoiler alert, I do go on to play Tang in the finals. It will be the first time I've ever fought him in the finals before. We're often like either on the same side of the bracket, or we've met for 3rd place once, I believe. Now, if we look at Killswitch's decks, he has this US-Italy ramp deck, which I don't want to play. To be honest, I don't want to play against. This deck will absolutely destroy Soviet Italy. This deck will be probably pretty weak against air, I would assume. How this does against US France is a bit more unclear. I would have to play the matchup a lot more. I would suspect, though, that I would be disfavored. Just, he has some high health units in there. Like, the 7th Alpinis are really annoying. B-17F can't be targeted. Mass deployment can always roll basically anything. 5th Rangers can be used to make 8/8s. So, this deck was getting banned, and as I mentioned previously, the other 2 decks are self-damage, which, I mean, is an interesting version of self-damage. 2 Sunrise divisions, a Sendai regiment fit in there. Running 2 copies of Counteroffensive, which I'm glad to see that's sort of catching on. I was slow to get onto the self-damage hype train. I did not think the deck was going to be that good. A lot of people discovered that it was really good before me. However, I was the one who was like, okay, if you're going to play self-damage, put in counter-offensive. It's obvious. And it took a long time. People thought I was crazy, but it's fun to see counter-offensive sort of becoming more mainstream. So I thought this deck's just going to be very easy to beat. And then the third deck is, of course, Brittly. Now, Killswitch is one of the few people I've managed to convince that research is good. So this is, I believe, actually an exact copy of my Brittly deck from the last tournament. So the only difference between my Brittly and his Brittly is I'm running the Wellington instead of Mosquito. So my ban here is very, very, very easy. Like, I did not have to think about this for more than a second. Just ban the US deck. It's a deck I'm not familiar with. It's a deck that's probably favored into 2 of my 3 decks. And he's probably going to ban air anyways. Now, it's not correct for him to ban air. So again, my lineup is air, Soviet Germany, anti-aggro, control, and this US-France deck. The correct decision is for him to ban Soviet Germany, because he should know I'm banning US air, or the US-Italy ramp deck. So it is just 100% Killswitch should ban Soviet Germany. If I was in his position, it's what I would ban. And what would that leave him with? It would leave him with air and self-damage against US, France, and my air. So there's a mirror matchup. There's air into my US, France, which I believe I'm slightly favored. There's self-damage into US, France, which I'm heavily favored. And then there's my air versus his self-damage, which is sort of 50-50. It's a really weird matchup. It's not hard for either deck, really. Although the games will always seem like snowballs, but they can snowball in either direction really hard. So it leaves him slightly disfavorable, but he bans air instead, and what does that leave him? It leaves him with self-damage, which probably has like a 15% win rate against US France and like a 5% win rate against the Soviet Germany deck. So I just, like, unless you expect me to ban self-damage, he should not ban air. Because he needs self-damage to win, and the only deck self-damage can reliably win against is air. And if he looks at my deck list, he should realize I'm not going to ban self-damage if it hard loses into 2 of my 3 decks. So, massive mistake by Killswitch on the bans, and we can see the bans actually here. His US deck is banned by me, my Brit deck is banned by him. Same mistake that Cappuccino made. Just because air is the best deck in the game does not mean that you need to ban air in every set. So, when we get into the actual games... Oh, I'm gonna mute this. We do not need to hear the casters. Although the casting was particularly good in this tournament, I thought. Now, we see game 1 is his self-damage versus my Soviet Germany. And the reason I'm bringing Soviet Germany first, same reason I brought it first in my quarterfinal against Ozzy, is air, or the US France, it's the slightly weaker matchup. Like, I think it's good into both of his decks, but I think Soviet Germany is better into both of his decks. And it's important to start off with a win, so I'm starting off with the deck that I'm basically certain is absolutely going to get me a win. And at the very least, bring it to 1-1. And I know the more games that are played, the more likely it is that I will be able to get a small edge over my opponent in one of the games just by playing better, or based on tiny little deck changes. So yeah, I just want this set to go on for as many games as possible, and that involves bringing the Soviet deck first. So we see in this opening mulligan, you don't want to play units against self-damage early if you're a control deck, because if you playing units just facilitates them playing their cheap damage and removal cards like Red Dawns and Sickles, which then leads to them playing out 34ths quickly. And you basically want to slow the game down as much as possible, because if you eventually get enough credits to answer these 34ths, your opponent is going to hard lose the game. Self-damage is a tempo deck. It's not particularly good at burn. So I'm considering keeping Partisans and Wolfpack here. I end up throwing back the Partisans, because Partisans is very good into self-damage. If they get 2 34ths in the front line, it's basically just 1 card, 7 credits, kill 2 34ths. It's incredibly good. It can also be used to return a card from hand, so if they play counter-offensive on something, I can take that counter-offensive unit, and then it goes back to hand, even if it has too much health for me to kill it. However, I have a lot of just really good removal cards in the deck, and I want to keep Wolfpack because I'm going second. Self-damage can lack on card draw. And at this point, I think it might have been like a little risky to keep Wolfpack. I probably would not do this if this was like game 3. I probably would not keep Wolfpack here. I think it's a little risky. Um, and on his side of the board, he should send back Red Dawn and Sickle because I'm not going to be playing anything. I would actually keep First Rifles. It's just a really annoying unit. And keep Yak because, yes, I have 3 7 strikes in the deck, but if you play Yak on turn 2 and I don't have 7 strike in my hand at that particular moment, you probably are going to win the game. Um, like, even if Yak sticks for like 2 turns, you probably have just won the game. Okay, that's a little. I'm like so favored. I think even then I would still be winning, but Yak is a pretty good card to keep. I would not keep the Sickle though. And he gets a pretty unfortunate hand, Sunrise Division, 2 Sickles, Yak. And I have a okay hand. I get the Sudden Strike, which responds to the Yak. The rest of my hand is... I don't really want to play it out. So here I just Sudden Strike the Yak. His hand is basically hot garbage. And if you're just looking at the hands, you would think, oh, why aren't I playing out second rifles here? Like, why would I not play out second rifles on my turn 3? And the answer is, I have no idea what's in his hand. It could be I play second rifles, and he does Bloody Sickle, Red Dawn, and then plays out a 34th Guides, followed by 2 more 34th Guides the following turn. And I am not even remotely capable of responding to a 34th Guides. So, if he ends up actually just playing Sunrise, which based on his hand is correct. It's better to just play this out as a 3-3, bait out more removal, bait out me playing a unit, and maybe you can start sickling things. And he moves it up, and at this point I'm like, I don't really need to kill that. Like, I can tank 3 damage. Because again, I still feel like he's just trying to bait me into playing it, and if he's only hitting me for 3, I'm just going to Wolfpack him. Just going to skip ahead because these turns take a really long time. So I pass on turn 3, I pass on turn 4. He top stacks a T80. At this point, it means he's going to start hitting you for 6 every turn, which means I die in 2 turns, or 3 turns if I just keep passing. Which means I need to play Guides. And at this point, with first rifles and second rifles in hand and 2 845ths, I'm like, yeah, I could play this out, like, even if he gets a Sickle Red Dawn, like, I'm not expecting this Guide to live. The hope is just, hopefully he doesn't have more than 1 845th. And, like, this first rifle's 272nd is going to be able to come out soon. It's just going to slow him down long enough. And fortunately for me, he did not have any 845ths in hand. So he does Sickle into 456th. Red Dawn. Here, I think he probably... Well, yeah, I think he probably should have just killed the 845th. I think this was a bit of a mistake. And now I have quite a few options. I can honestly just, like, Wolfpack and trade into the T60. I can root out, double Sickle. Well, not in that order. I can double Sickle the one in the support line. Root out. I can trade into the 3-3 root out. I can Sickle the 3-3 root out. There's a lot of different plays I can go for. I actually forget which play I go for in the tournament. Let's see. I go for just not playing the root out yet. And the reasoning I don't do this is I haven't seen a scouting party from him. I haven't seen any 33rd recons from him. And root out's a really effective card with dealing with scouting party because it basically just means you're not drawing 2 cards. So if it's rare for opponents to play, and by rare I mean it's just a mistake, to play scouting party against a deck with root out. However, if they do scouting party Winter Warfare, draw 2 cards, those 2 cards just replace the Scouting Party and the Winter Warfare they played, and then if you root out after that, you're still denying 2 draws from them, so they're really only going even. And here it kind of looks threatening, but I have a Partisans at this point. I have 272nd coming down soon. I'm just, like, actually perfectly fine to Wolfpack. Let him move up this 6-6. And yeah, as we see, we'll go on to see, Partisans just sort of ends this game. Trade into the 7-7, take the 7-7, kill the 6-6, and returns the 7-7 to hand as a 1-3. So, obviously I didn't have enough credits to, like, Sickle the 7-1 at the end of it to get rid of an 845th, but, or not 845th, a 456th. But this is perfectly fine. He plays out that scouting party. The scouting party reveals that I have root out in hand. He does not have a way to damage these, which is incredibly unfortunate for him. So here, very obvious root out play, get rid of the recons, limit the draw. And again, just because there's very limited burst, I don't have to really be scared of dying. So, like, how would he be able to kill me? If he has Winter Warfare, like second scouting party Winter Warfare counteroffensive, that isn't even enough. And that's require the 2 cards in his hand to be precisely Winter Warfare second scouting party. No, sorry, that would be enough. So yeah, I mean, technically, I could have died, I suppose. But yeah, at this point, the game is dead lost. He does not have the exact perfect burst hand necessary. So it's essentially just a formality of the game going on. We don't have to see the rest of this. Game ends in this situation. Like once you're like on the back foot of self damage, it's so difficult to come back. And I take the 1-0 lead. I get that win with the Soviet deck, which I expected, and again, why he should have banned the Soviet deck. And it goes into my US-France deck. And this is the first time it's been... Well, it is the first time I have played it on stream. It's Bordeaux brought a very, very similar deck, only 1 card difference. And went 1-1 with it on stream, I believe. He did win with the deck. He beat self-damage, lost to air with it. So now I'm playing the deck into air. And this is a very difficult matchup. Not necessarily difficult as in it's hard to win, but it's more like hard to play. And the deck itself is just sort of hard to play. Like, you kind of want to keep Phony War. There's just like not a ton of options to draw, and you're gonna need to be competing with like Lend Leases. However, at the same time, you don't want to keep Phony War if it means you're not getting early game aggression, or you're not getting early game removal, because you need to answer Air's early game aggression, as well as answer their just endless wave after wave after wave of cards with their Lend Leases after Lend Leases and their convoys. So here, I'm keeping Defend in Depth, just because it can come out on 3 credits. Sometimes it's risky to keep Defend in Depth going second, just in case they have like an all 1-drop card hand and they're dumped their entire hand super early. I also end up deciding to keep DFA, just in case they turbo buff a single unit. Actually, we saw in Bordeaux versus Noen did, I think he was Finest Hour Cass, or no, I think it was Finest Hour Mare Nostrum on a Fiat to just make a 5/5 Fiat, no other units on board, which Bordeaux did not have the DFA, which meant he went on to lose the game because that Fiat dealt like 15 or 20 damage or something. But yeah, the DFA is a pretty good card, and would have basically meant no one immediately lost that game if Bordeaux had it in that situation. And this is a very long and painful game. US-France unit list versus air almost always goes to fatigue. And we see Killswitch does not have what is typically a very good hand. Typically, air wants a lot of 1-drops. However, if we look at my hand, if you just played a lot of 1-drops, I would have just removed them all one after another after another. So it's sort of strange what is the like good hand against this deck. And at this point, I'm just faced with what is the best way to use the removal in my hand to remove the units on board. So in this case, just I'd rather have an air defense in hand than a defend in depth to get the defend in depth out early, because he might start just hand dumping. Throws out a single swordfish, and it's turns like these which can be tricky for this deck, because you're thinking, well, it's 1 damage a turn, and I have Liberation in hand, so I'm not really worried about the damage threat this bomber is offering. If I leave it on the turn, I want to play Strategic Bombing on 6, usually. So if I just leave it there, it dies to Strategic Bombing in a couple turns. I don't want to DFA it, that's too much. I don't want to air defense, that's probably too much. Defend in depth, maybe. Patrol gunship, that loses 2 cards. However, I have the phony in hand, so I end up doing gunship and patrol, and I stand by that play. But it just sort of shows that you can be put into some awkward decisions, like forced to make some awkward decisions. Um, Speaking of awkward decisions, Killswitch's hand right now. Do you throw out the Spitfire now because there's less of a chance that I have an answer to it? You did just see gunship and patrol be used, or do you save Spitfire for the Spitfire Finest Hour Burst combo? However, I am running Sniped, Air Defense, and Counter Strike, which are 3 countermeasures that all are going to counter Spitfire, and he knows that I'm probably good enough of a player to hold these. At least one of these left for a Spitfire, so he knows it's probably unlikely a Spitfire Burst is ever going to happen. And, of course, it dies to battery, it dies to defend in depth, which is what I use. I actually hold up air defense here because I see the Spitfire is gone, which is the primary burst factor. So with Spitfire gone, I'm like, I know that I don't need a countermeasure to stop a potential like 12, 14, 16, 18 damage of burn from hand. With synthetic rubber, it can actually just straight up be like 20 plus damage from hand. So I no longer have to worry about that. Also, getting air defense out of my hand is pretty good, because I now have 2 phony wars. And if you have 2 phony wars in hand, it gets clogged pretty quickly. So just take Fiat out immediately. And now Killswitch is once again sort of in an awkward situation. Do you play the Mosquito? Do you play Wrath and Swordfish? I'd probably go with Wrath and Swordfish just to stop DFA. And that's what he ends up going for. Here, I just play Strap Bombing, play it on curve, get the credit denial out quickly. It's an expensive card in my hand. Liberation would not have filled hand. However, here, if he plays like a Convoy or something, Liberation can theoretically work. And he's just trying to empty his hand size as much as possible. It does not get out of defend and depth range, but it makes Cross of Lorraine very expensive. It would take my entire turn to play Cross of Lorraine. It also means that if I play Phony War to look for removal, he's going to draw 5 cards, and it also is making room in his hand for when he wants to do Lend-Lease on the following turn. Here, I'm just probably going to do DFA. I see he's running low on cards. I've seen a Finest Hour now. Spitfire's gone. He, of course, just plays Lend-Lease, and after Lend-Lease is the turn that you almost always want to play Phony War. I don't do it this time just because it would work out really awkwardly. I would only draw 3 cards, and then float 3 credits. So instead I do the slightly more credit efficient play, which is to go for Liberation, and I figure he's probably not going to like dump his entire hand. Here there's a couple different plays I can do. I can gunship the Albacore, hold up Counter Strike heal. I can gunship the Albacore Liberation. I can gunship the Albacore Phony War. I'm kind of tempted to go for the Liberation here. Like, gunship Liberation. Just because the Counter Strike play can be punished by a few things. One, he could just not attack. 2, maybe he has HMS to trigger it for cheap. And it's now going to be several turns before I can remove this 4/4. So yeah, I go for Gunship Liberation. Mill Research, which is a really big one. Sometimes air can just go through Bletchley Park, and if you don't find Phony War, sometimes you're just sort of top decking and they slowly overwhelm you. Killswitch here, correctly just trying to dump cards from his hand. Not wanting to take cards from his deck. I mean, picking what to do with these resistances is actually really tough, because you're dropping yourself to 13. You've seen Research gone. So you have Baron Ostrom in the deck, but you're running very low on healing. If I just like start whipping out nukes here, like if I just start researching for nukes, I'm probably going to kill you with nukes before you kill me with just what's on board. Now here there's a couple different options. Battery to remove Albacore Phony War. Battery to remove Albacore hold up Counter Strike. This prevents him from being able to attack. Obviously if he has HMS, that's pretty unfortunate. He plays Lend-Lease, which from his point of view is a pretty good turn. However, that I see the second Lend-Lease, I'm almost 100% going to play Phony War next turn. And if I do play Phony War, which I believe I do, it is going to draw him 4 cards. He correctly gets cards out of his hand quickly. This does put him in a circumstance where Stars and Stripes Cross of Lorraine lets me kill 2 of his units. But it's basically impossible to always be playing around all of my removal, and the way Air wins this game is not by playing slow, but trying to play fast, get a lot of units on the board, force me to have these specific cards. Whereas if you play 1 unit at a time, you really just give me the ability to pick whatever removal I want. So here I got a lot of options. I can remove the 6/6. I could hold up Counter Strike and remove the 3/3. I think probably just removing the 6/6 is best. Yep, be credit efficient, gunship over battery. And Killswitch is very quickly running out of cards. I believe these are his last 2 close air supports in hand. He has a Finest Hour and a Mary Nostrum, but those are the last of his buffs. He has an HMS, which is a little bit of burn. But he's also in a situation where I've drawn a lot of cards. You have to be thinking about Stars and Stripes, which is in my deck, 1 copy. Oop, sorry. Goes for the double cast, and holds up Ultra. Now, this is a very good play. This is sort of the all-in type of play you need to make as Air in the situation, where you just make a huge board, you hold up Ultra, you really hope that I don't have the ability to, like, for example, play, like, United We Stand, and then high altitude bombing. And here, I don't have that ability. I do have United We Stand to trigger Ultra, because I'm basically certain he has it, which is going to let me do DFA and hold up Counter Strike. And that's going to get 3 cards out of my hand, probably. Oh, I even have enough credits to heal, hold up Counter Strike. So that gets 4 cards out of my hand, assuming we need attacks. It gets rid of the Ultra altogether, and I have Phony War now. Now here, my biggest worry is just HMS Illustrious to trigger the Counter Strike, and then he hits face for 11. Because then that could put me in a very awkward situation, where I don't have, like, a guaranteed tab removal. Killswitch is in a very awkward situation where if he plays out 2 units, like, do you not attack because you know there's a Counter Strike? Do you do attack because you have to play into the Counter Strike regardless, or you might think I'm baiting having Counter Strike, you don't want to lose by just never attacking? The only way to stop Counter Strike is by playing out units from hand, and that would also prevent high altitude bombing from being a guaranteed removal of your 2 biggest units. However, if you play out 2 units, that means Stars and Stripes dealing 4 damage, which means you lose the 2 units you just played out, as well as bringing Sexton and Fiat both into patrol range, gunship range, United We Stand range, and Cross of Lorraine range. Also battery range. Like, if I just, like, it's pretty difficult to play out units without just bringing all of your units into range of just immediately being removed. So here, I kind of want to hold on to the Phony War just a little bit longer, hold up that Counter Strike again. I can Hellcat into the 2/2 and hold up Counter Strike. Fun little cards trivia for you here. So it's countermeasures are supposed to trigger in the order you hold them up. And this is true for most countermeasures in the game. So, for example, the German countermeasures, if you hold up from the deep and then Careless Talk, you'll destroy the first unit played and deal 3 damage to the next. If you hold Careless Talk and then from the deep, you'll deal 3 damage to the first unit. If it's still alive, from the deep will trigger. If it dies, the next unit played will be destroyed by from the deep. However, and with Counter-Strike and Sniped, it behaves slightly differently. Where Sniped will always trigger first for some reason. So that's why I don't also hold up Sniped here. Because if I did, the unit would become a 2/2 and then be destroyed. Which is very unfortunate. It just makes Sniped unnecessarily worse than it otherwise is. And just, I don't think it's worth throwing out as a completely dead card. Maybe it is. Like, maybe I actually should have just also held up Sniped here. Just get another card out of my hand. However, there is the thought that in the future I can still hold it up if the only unit on the board is, like an example, a 5/6 Sexton. which I can't remove because it has very high health. However, I can hold up Sniped, which means it threatens to just become a 2-2 I don't really care about if it attacks. So, unfortunately for Killswitch, he still doesn't have the second finest out. He still doesn't have the HMS. Um, I'm kind of surprised he's not playing Convoy to draw. Like, you're worried about fatigue, but your main worry should be just, I kill you with every single... Like, I kill every single unit you're capable of playing. At this point, you want to just be playing out your deck as quickly as possible and hope that I do not have answers to it. So here, plays out the two gladiators, and I guess by this point he's figuring, like, he doesn't have Stars and Stripes, because obviously if I did have Stars and Stripes, that'd be really good. And here, I can't remove the gladiators, which in Counter-Strike is going to be triggered by a 1-3. I might as well play the Phony War now. It's not getting any better. I find the Defend in Depth, which is very good, kills Sexton. It's possible that maybe I should have killed the Fiat instead, just because it's 0 operation cost. However, it's unlikely to matter. He doesn't have a ton of cards left in his deck. And I killed the Gladiator with 2 cards, because I'm trying to just be credit efficient as possible. Next turn, I'm likely going to be drawing with the colonies, and I'm capable of drawing into high altitude bombing. And I'm getting pretty low into the deck, so the odds that I draw into high altitude bombing are increasing. And if I do, I want this 1-3 already gone to increase the odds that high altitude bombing hits the 5-5. Now, the reason to keep those would be if I draw into Stars and Stripes, and I could even do Call to the Colonies into Stars and Stripes, and then do Gunship and United We Stand to clean up these leftover units. So it's sort of unsure as to whether or not that was the correct play. I'm out of Phony Wars, so it doesn't really matter for me if I dump my hand or not. And here, he's just trying to end the game as quickly as possible, and that's absolutely correct on him. And I believe I draw into high altitude bombing. The Seaborne Invasion, which is unfortunate, not really a card I'm looking for. High altitude bombing takes out the 6-7 Mariner unit, but does not take out the 5-5. There's the HMS. Here, honestly, I think I would rather keep the HMS for burst potential, or not burst potential, the ability to trigger Counter-Strike. I would have played out the Swordfish and the Fiat, hit face through 5, and then next turn, you know I probably have Counter-Strike in hand, you know I'm probably going to hold it up. If I remove the Swordfish and the Fiat, then you play HMS, trigger countermeasure from hand. Because in this situation, if I am able to remove both Swordfishes and hold up Counter-Strike, you just kind of... You can't... You're out of ways to trigger it from hand. So you're just either losing Fiat to Counter-Strike or you're not attacking face. And at this point, I don't think you can really afford to not attack face. So here, I also think you should have just played another unit, because if I have Stars and Stripes, there is basically an 100% chance that I'll be able to kill this Fiat. There's just so many cards in my deck that the odds that I don't have, like a Patrol or a Gunship or a United We Stand or a Cross of Lorraine or a Battery or whatever, the odds this Fiat dies if I have Stars and Stripes is basically 100%. You can't play around Stars and Stripes at this point, so, like, the playing more units just plays around, like, it lowers the cost of, it increases the cost of my Cross of Lorraines. It means I think I have a third Defend in Depth. I'm not absolutely certain. I might have played them all. But if I have a third Defend in Depth, not playing Swordfish means Fiat dies to it. It also means that there's less units. Like, DFA is more likely to hit the 5-5. I'm more likely to be able to do Cross of Lorraine Battery DFA to guaranteed kill the 5-5. It is a pretty big mistake not to play a Fiat or a Swordfish. Here, I think this was probably a mistake. I think the best play would have been Seaborne Invasion, depth charges. Like, Seaborne Invasion first, see what I get. If I get the California Regiment, then I can just trade into the 5-5, and I win the game. Or, I just roll Seaborne Invasion, play, depth charges, and wait it out. Because at this point, almost every single card in my deck is very well positioned to um, remove this board. So going for depth charges just increases the odds that I survive. And here, because he didn't play the unit before, I thought he wasn't going to play it again. So this is like if you think about back 2 turns ago, or last turn, he was in this exact same position and he didn't choose to play anything. So he's out of cards in his deck. That Empire Strikes was literally the last card in his deck. So I know the 4 cards in hand. I know that he can successfully play around high altitude bombing. However, I thought he wasn't going to do it because of fear of Stars and Stripes. Now, obviously, that would be a misplay for him to do, but it was a misplay he made the previous turn. But this turn, he correctly plays the Fiat in the end. He thinks about it a long time, plays the Fiat, and this means I am in this situation where I lose the game. I'm at 1 health. I can do Patrol on Fiat, high altitude bombing, to kill 2 of the 3 remaining units. I can do DFA high altitude bombing to kill 3 out of 4 of the units randomly. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm going to lose to 1 unit. Because these 2 Parasies are never attacking phase. I have 2 torpedo attacks. So, yeah, at the end of the day, if that draw was called to the colonies, I think I won the game. If that card was Stars and Stripes, I won the game. If that card was Gunship Mission, I have a 2 and 3 to win the game. But, unfortunately, that card was DFA. Killswitch wins game 2, and we're headed to game 3, which is my self-damage versus his, his self-damage versus my US France. And again, this matchup is almost unwinnable for him. I just have so much removal, and he has so few units in his deck. Plus, he has a lot of cards in his deck that rely on dealing damage and easily removing your opponent's units. I don't run units. Like, there's 2 units in my deck, both of which will be saved exclusively to be traded the turn they're played. So yeah, keep Zukov, that's correct. Full mulligan, everything else, I'm not going to be playing anything. I think I kept that torpedo attack, just because it's a very flexible card. Killswitch, every single card in Killswitch's deck but Yak requires the front line to attack me. So torpedo attack is just basically 3 credits, destroy any card in this deck. So Zukov hits 456, which is unfortunate for him. And we're going to be going through this game slightly faster. 1, I mean, I don't want to just keep repeating myself the entire time. And 2, this game is basically a lost cause, and we don't need to see it in great lengths to realize that. So here, again, I'm just using battery since it's it's more expensive than Defend in Depth, and 2, it's a fixed damage, whereas Defend in Depth can potentially deal 6 damage to kill a 34th. Torpedo attack can just straight up kills anything. It can kill a 34th, it can kill a Sunrise, it can kill something that's been buffed by counteroffensive. So Killswitch just sort of tries his best. He keeps saving this 34th in hand. I think that's probably because he knows that if he plays it, it's going to die immediately. And I was wondering if he was potentially saving it to play out like 2, 3, or 4, like in the same turn, and to basically just try to overwhelm me. Like play 4 in the same turn, move whatever ones survive the first turn to the front line, and then on the second turn, if any survive in the front line, do like a Winter Warfare counteroffensive hit for a lot. I think that's probably what he was going for, something along that lines. Here he's at 9 cards and doesn't really want to play anything in his hand. I think the Naval Brigade is correct, which is what he ends up playing, if I remember correctly. And here, I just heal. Wait, do I even heal? I think I draw. Yeah, I draw. Because I don't have Phony Wars, but I do have Liberations. Again, self-damage doesn't have a ton of burst. I just want to make sure that I have the removal. And I find high altitude bombing, and I find research. So now I'm getting nukes in like 3 turns. He is nowhere remotely close to killing me. His hand is entirely garbage. So he sickles his own unit to draw. He actually sickles his own unit twice to draw. He gets out the 34th. Unfortunately for him, he does not have any more 34ths. He's not low enough for the Sunrise to come out as 9-9s, and that's basically an integral part of him winning this game at this point. He's playing two 9-9s. I do high altitude bombing, and very fortunately for me, it actually kills the two best targets. So he's just dumping his hand, because at this point, it doesn't really matter. I think that Winter Warfare might have been a little premature just because of counteroffensives in your deck, but you also probably have to recognize that I'm not going to let him potentially counteroffensive to win if I can play around it at all. And based just on my hand size, I can probably play around it. Throws out a Red Dawn in his own unit to bring himself below 10 so he can play the Sunrise as a 9-9. I'm not certain I'm convinced about this play. I think probably keeping the health of your guy in the front line was important. Just because I have so many cards that deal 2 damage in my deck. And just like that, I remove all 3 of his cards, and he is nowhere closer to winning. He can't really play this 5-year plan, because if he does, he drops to 3, and dies to basically any card in my deck. Like, at 3 health, Cross of Lorraine kills him, 2 gunships kill him, Hellcat kills him if the front line's empty. He cannot play this 5-year plan. He needs Great Patriotic War. So he just plays out his hand, and even at 8 health, this is where the burn part of the deck kicks in. Hellcat face, double gunship mission. This game was never close. And, I mean, pretty well played by Killswitch. He brought the very standard lineup, executed the decks very well. However, we see that the lineup I brought, I think, just was very, very good into the lineups people brought. It was very good into the meta. And unfortunately for Killswitch, he drops down to the 3rd place match where he lost 3-0 to no one, and ended up in 4th. Now here, I'm against Tang in the finals. No bans for the first time. And if we look at Tang's decks, he has Feigned Retreat Jagra, which again, if there was bans, this deck would be banned instantly. Very scared of this deck into US France. He has Brutally Air, basically exactly the deck you would expect him to bring. Like the exact deck list you would expect. It's very standard. And then, of course, he has his Germany-Italy deck. I see he has moved towards my version with Lurking Dangers and Careless Talks, just to add a slightly more anti-aggro and a bit of draw into the deck. However, again, I still think this version of the deck is so heavy. Like, he's running 1 Decisive, no Bologna, and he's running 2 JU, 2 Panther G, 2 Wolfpack, 2 Annihilation, and King Tiger, and Africa Core. He's even cut Sudden Strikes down to 2 Sudden Strikes. Like, I just disagree with how this deck is built. Like, this deck is going to clean up any other control, like anti-aggro control, which I suppose is fine, but the vast majority of players are bringing triple aggro, and this deck sucks into aggro. Like, I mean, sometimes you stick a Panther G with Mare Nostrum and you win the game, but a lot of times you die before turn 5. So, yeah, I strongly disagree. I think this deck is very weak. And at this point, with no bans, the question once again becomes, what deck do I bring first? And I mentioned this on the stream I did right after the tournament. The deck you bring first is very important for tournaments. Basically, just any agency or information you can gather, or agency to affect the outcome of the games in any meaningful way, is something that you should take and use to your advantage. So, in this position, I know Tang really likes bringing the same decks in the same order, basically every single set. His first game was off stream, but in his second game, Air was banned. He brought Germany, Italy, and then Jagro. And just having watched him play in multiple tournaments for multiple months now, I know he really likes bringing Jagro last. Just like keeping Jagro as a pocket pick, sort of. Like, if I can win with all my other decks, Jagro just has a 50% chance against anything. if my back's up against the wall, like if it's win or lose last game of the set, I want it to be with Jaguar because it can beat anything. If it's um, I'm up like 2-0, I want that last deck to be Jaguar because if I'm gonna Jaguar's 100% gonna win one game in three. So I know he likes to bring Jaguar last, and this is very very useful information for me because my US France into his Jaguar is basically an instant loss. If that matchup happens, he just gets a free win. However, if I know Jaguar is going to be the last deck he brings, it means I can bring US France first, and if I lose, I can bring it again second, uh, and basically, I just get US France through. Or I lose twice in a row to his non-Jaguar decks, in which case I was going to lose the series anyways. So the question becomes, is he going to bring air first or Jury Italy? Normally he brings air. However, I brought Soviets in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, so he might have been thinking, oh, he's going to bring Soviets first again. However, I was bringing Soviets first because I was playing against opponents with two aggro decks. In this situation, I'm playing against an opponent with two aggro decks and a very heavy control deck. And a very heavy control deck, I know he's going to bring first or second. And a very heavy control deck, I know he bringing first before. So basically, I just started with US France, and he brought Germany Italy. I don't know if he brought it first because just he was going to bring that first anyways. I don't know if he brought it first because he thought he was going to try to target my Soviet Germany. Because as we end up going to see, his Germany Italy just hard crushes my Soviet Germany. Like I cannot win that game whatsoever. So despite my decks into his decks, there being two matchups which are just entirely winnable. My Soviet Germany cannot beat his Germany Italy, and my US France cannot beat his German aggro. However, I was just able to utilize these sort of like out of game meta skills I've developed over the years to gain an advantage, like gain an edge, despite having these two terrible matchups. I was able to avoid the first one and make the second one essentially forced. So we will see in game one. I bring US France, he brings Jur Italy. And this is actually a matchup I've played against him on Ladu twice. I won both times. I'm very comfortable in this matchup, and I also know he is very comfortable with this matchup. And he is a good player. He is a very good player. So I know he's probably going to be looking for those King Tigers, the Comets, the Panther Gs, the Research. And typically, I win this matchup just on Fatigue. It is possible to win on Burn if you can just control their ability to heal with Mare Nostrum, because Mare Nostrum is the only healing. So if you just kill every single unit as it enters play, or you hold up like Counter-Strike or Air Defense to prevent units from being able to attack, it is actually possible to just essentially burn out Jur Italy because you were preventing them from healing. So there's a whole lot of passing in this game. I essentially pass until turn 3. He plays Research. I pass turn 3. He holds up Careless Talk. I am at 9 cards. I need to play something, so I play Colonies to heal. I go down to 8 cards. He doesn't want to play Panther G on an empty board because that essentially immediately dies to it immediately dies to Defend in Depth. He doesn't want to play Panzer H because that puts him a card deeper, and there's a very high likelihood this game is going to Fatigue. So he just holds up Careless Talk and passes. He's going to force me to play. It's also possible, it is sometimes possible to get this US-France deck into a position where they have 9 unplayable cards in hand, and you essentially just keep passing until you eventually win on Fatigue. Now that is very unlikely to happen, but you are forcing me to use cards inefficiently. Like normally I would want to gunship a unit, however in this situation I'm forced to gunship his face to avoid Fatigue. So he goes for Synthetic Oil and plays it, which is going to let him get a ton of units down on the board at once, which means Panther A is not going to be a guaranteed to DFA target. He's going to be able to do some other stuff. And I take this opportunity to get a Hellcat out of my hand. So I know he's running Careless Talkers in the deck. This is the first turn where he's spent all of his credits. Well, first turn since turn 3. That he's spent all of his credits. So I have 2 Hellcats in hand. I'm going to get one of these out of my hand now. And it's going to do a little bit of damage, because I know otherwise these Hellcats are just going to be stuck in my hand for basically the rest of the game. Also, other than Gunship Mission, this is basically the only card I can play. I could play DFA on an empty board, but that would be a massive waste. DFA is one of the most important cards against his deck because it kills King Tigers and Panther Raids, which are otherwise immune to all of my cards. So, fortunately for me, I do get the 4 damage in, I get the card out of my hand. Unfortunately for me, it gives him a target. He can play Lion for a day, he can play Hipper, or he can play Annihilation. And because he has 17 credits, he's going to start with a Panzer H, get unit on the board, again, to stop the guaranteed DFA on Panther, Panther G. I feel like I've been mislabeling Panther G. In retrospect, maybe I've been calling it Panzer G. I don't know. So I don't know what his options are, but he picked the second Panzer H, which probably can't be good. He chooses to go for the Annihilation because, again, this is a matchup which is very difficult for him to win, so maybe Annihilation hits, like, Research or something really massive. Maybe it hits, like, a Phony War and he can discard me out. Maybe it hits, like, a Liberation and he can burn me out. But I would like to point out that, as an alternative to this play, he could have done second Panzer H, killed it with Lion for a day. Now that does use all of his credits, which means Panther G is now vulnerable to second Hellcat, which I did have. So there's some back and forth about whether or not this play is good. Hipper can be played on your own units to some effect, so saving Hipper makes sense. I do wonder, maybe playing Lion for a day might have been slightly better, because in this situation, I can just do Defend in Depth, DFA, to guarantee kill the Panther G. Fully removes it, it is gone. Then he does Panzer H, takes second Panther G, because again, this card is one of the most important cards in his deck. And here, I just pass, I believe. Like, I don't need to kill this 2-4. I don't have any DFAs or high-altitude bombings in hand where I'm, like, worried that this 2-4 is sticking on the board is going to do a lot. Also, I want to get this Torpedo attack out of my hand. And I know basically the only unit in his deck that he's going to move to the front line to attack me with. There was 989s, but if he has units on the board, he's probably not going to play a 989. If he does, it's a 3-3, so Cross of Lorraine can clean it up. So this Panzer H is basically the only targeted card in the foreseeable future that's going to be attacking me from the front line, which means it's a target for Torpedo attack. And I would rather use Torpedo attack than, say, a Defend in Depth, which could clean up a JU, or like a Battery, which can be used to deal some damage face. So he moves up attacks, holds up Careless Talk, because he knows he needs to get damage in, and if it triggers Counter-Strike, killing a 2-4 with Counter-Strike is perfectly fine. And it's at this point where I start thinking, like, obviously before I would, the reason I did the Hellcat move was partially get it out of my hand, but also partially drop him to 14, still limited healing. But with the second Cross of Lorraine play, at this point I started looking at how much burn I have. So these two Cross of Lorraines are 3 damage each, so that's 6 damage for 2 credits. Gunship, 8 damage for 4 credits, so that leaves him at 6. I can also do United We Stand Battery for an additional 5 credits, which means for 9 credits, I can drop him to 4 health. So, like, I have 10 burst from hand at the moment. So that's pretty good. It's not game winning yet. Obviously, this Careless Talk is going to prevent this Hellcat from ever reaching phase, so this Hellcat's basically useless. And I don't have a DFA to kill this Panther G. So I think I end up just defending... No, I use Torpedo attack. Yeah. Because Defend in Depth can kill JU. Or, like, Leopold or something. So here Tang draws the Mare Nostrum. Now you might just think, oh, easy, Mare Nostrum, move up. You didn't have DFA, so Mare Nostrum, you move up, attack face, heal for 7. You're going to win the game. However, I run Counter-Strike in my deck. I also run Sniped in my deck, which could work. Could use Sniped and Air Defense in combination. But I run Counter-Strike in the deck. And I floated 6 credits. So what Tang is thinking is, if he plays, like, if he moves up, plays Mare Nostrum and attacks, and there's Counter-Strike, he has just wasted 7 credits and one of his 3 healing cards on absolutely nothing, and now his board is empty. And that's exactly what I want. So instead, he plays Dechima, with the idea of I am never going to have a unit in my support line, so Dechima is never going to be used for its effect. And in 2 turns, he can get Dechima to the front line and attack me to trigger Counter-Strike with Dechima if I have it. So, very, very good play by him. I draw Call to the Colonies. Puts me at 8 cards. I have to do something. Next turn, I do not actually have to do something now. Like, I can remove this Dechima, but again, it's an infantry, so sitting in the support line, I don't actually care that it's there. I'm going to be able to remove it next turn, and I would rather wait till next turn to have just the widest number of options to remove it with. So he draws 989, gets 2 units to the front line now. He's very much pushing to guarantee trigger Counter-Strike, or at least prevent it. And he's even considering playing Mare Nostrum. He doesn't, which I believe is correct, just because, like, high altitude bombing, Cross of Lorraine, high altitude bombing, something like that. And here, the amount of damage output I have has only gone up by 1, because I can do battery on the 989 to deal 3 damage to the headquarters instead of 1 or 2 damage on the Dechima, or the Panzer H, as it used to be. So here is very interesting. I want to remove both of these units because I realize he is playing around Counter-Strike. I realize he probably has Mare Nostrum in hand, and as long as there is no other unit that can attack face, he's not going to heal for 7. And I also know if he heals for 7, I'm in a pretty rough spot. So, I also know there's a couple cards in his deck that he can draw, namely Heinkel. Like, he could draw Comet and sack the Comet. That wouldn't let him heal on the same turn, and Comet... Well, Comet wouldn't be dead, but it would require him to consider sacking the Comet, which is not something he really wants to do. But Heinkel would let him attack face, see that there's no Counter-Strike, play Mare Nostrum, move up, attack, heal. So I'm not in that situation yet, though, because he doesn't have Heinkel. If he had Heinkel, he would be playing it. So I want to remove both of these infantries, but I also want to be somewhat efficient on removal. Now, you might think just, oh, throw it across of Lorraine. Like, it deal 3 damage to a unit. It's deal 3 damage to this 3/3. It's a very efficient way of getting rid of this. And you would be correct. However, I'm also thinking about the burn at this point. So, what I end up doing is defend in depth and battery. Now you might think, okay, well, using defend in depth, you now don't have that to answer like a Leopold or a JU, or something a bit more scary. So this is a bit of a risk. And you can see this is a bit of a risk that is going down the burn strategy. Like, I'm now fully committing to this burn strategy. Now, you also might just say, if I'm going to use defend in depth battery, you're going to be say, okay, defend in depth the 2/4, battery the 3/3, deal 1 damage face. However, I throw an even extra step in there. I do United We Stand first, which means battery does 3 damage. I'm just trying to maximize the damage. So at this point, I have 8 damage in hand. He is at 11, so I'm 3 damage off lethal. At any point, if he doesn't hold up a careless talk, like if he, for example, just played King Tiger here, he would die. And a second Mare Nostrum draw is pretty unfortunate for him because he's still trying to play around this Counter-Strike. Now he gets the Panther G to the front line. There's not really any risk of it being there. And I draw second battery, which means I'm now 1 off lethal, because Patrol Battery does 2 damage, 2 Cross of Lorraines does 6 damage, Gunship does 2 damage, which means 10 damage total for 12 credits. So I'm 1 off lethal. I know that I still have a little bit of time before he starts healing, because he's still going to play around Counter-Strike. So I'm going to Call to the Colonies to draw 2. Because I played 3 cards last turn, I now have 7 cards in hand. Call to the Colonies puts me up to 8. And I draw the second Gunship. So here, I have lethal in hand. On the following turn, I can do Patrol, Battery on Dechima, Gunship, Gunship, Cross of Lorraine, for 12 damage, 12 credits. However, I can Gunship now, so if on the following turn he plays 2 cards, the Cross of Lorraine will go to 2 cost, which means I won't have enough credits to do this, so maybe I want to Gunship now. The reason I don't Gunship now is if I just Gunship him in the face this turn, he's 100% going to think, oh, he's going to kill me next turn. Like, he is setting up lethal somehow. And he's going to play Mare Nostrum, and he's going to attack and just risk triggering the Counter-Strike, because he's going to be like, okay, this is sort of a win-or-lose situation. I lose if he has Counter-Strike, so I might as well. Like, I'm going to lose next turn, so I might as well trigger the Counter-Strike, see if I lose to that as well. So, recognizing that that is probably how he would react, because Tang is a very good player, I choose actually just to pass here. Also, if I play gunship, it's more likely he's going to wolfpack, hit something. I mean, it would be almost impossible. There's like only two cards in my hand. Well, almost impossible. It would be a 25% chance that he wouldn't discard part of the lethal combination. And actually playing gunship would make it less likely he discards part of the lethal combination. However, if I'm at 8 cards, it's less likely he'll just throw out a random wolfpack. So here, Tang. Um, Interesting play. He's at 9 cards. He needs to get something out of hand. He doesn't want to waste a Marinos yet. He decides to do high altitude bombing, um, where he can just immediately replay the Panther G. It's a tank, so it doesn't matter that it goes back to the support line. And here, I'm just doing the math, making sure I'm correct, and let's just let this play out. This is beautiful. This is my favorite game of the tournament. Both of us played this game incredibly well. And honestly, this is like the magnum opus game for this deck and this tournament. I love it so much. And that puts me up 1-0 with the US-France deck, arguably the weakest of my 3 decks through. I'm going back. Game 2, again, I know the Tang strategy. If he loses with a deck, he will almost always bring that same deck again, which means he's probably going to bring Jury Italy. And also, there's even more likely he's going to bring Jury Italy, because there's a 50-50 that I bring Soviets. Like, if you just look at the 2 decks I have, I bring Air or I bring Soviets. If I bring Soviets and he plays Jury Italy, he gets a free win. We're tied 1-1. The series continues. However, I'm going to bring Air, because I know that he's almost certainly going to bring Jury Italy. And worst case scenario, he brings his own Air deck. We're in a 50-50, and I'm confident that I, at the bare minimum, go even with him if I don't outplay him in the mirror match. So I bring Air, and of course he brings Jury Italy again. And he has a pretty good hand. No sudden strikes, but again, he only wants 2. No hairless talks. When I saw him keep 3 cards, I assumed he had Careless Talk. I think this was actually a mistake by him. I'm unconvinced by keeping 989. Like, keeping Tactical Strike and Research, completely agree with. I would have mulliganed 989, just because you have these removals that you're going to be playing on 3 and 4. And if you're playing them on 3 and 4, you're not playing 989. And once you get to 5 credits, you can play JUs, you can play 989s, you can play Panther Gs. Like, most of the cards in your deck will be unlocked once you reach 5 credits. So you would rather have a card in your potentially have a card in your hand that you can play before that, which would be Careless Strike, or Careless Talk, Sudden Strike. Because the odds that you miss Careless Talk and Sudden Strike, and also by turn 5 you do not have a 989, a JU, or a Panther G, is just incredibly unlikely. Like, virtually impossible, if not impossible. So I actually disagree with that mulligan, slightly. Here I was considering keeping Spitfire, just because sometimes you can play Spitfire on 4. But knowing Tang also runs Tax Strike, it's even more likely it dies. Which means I want to save Spitfire for a Spitfire Finest Hour, which is a very common way to beat Joe Italy. So here I go first. I play, so I don't have to worry about Careless Talk. Tang passes. And here, I don't play the Gladiator on 2, because I assume he's playing up Careless Talk. Which means, like, I sort of, at this point, I'm just, like, playing as if my opponent has a very good hand. So I assume he has Careless Talk. I'm not going to play Gladiator into it for no reason. Because if he does have Careless Talk, I play Gladiator, we trade Careless Talks, we trade cards. And then he plays Sudden Strike. I now have an empty board on turn 2. And we've gone 2 for 2. And Jury Italy just benefits from going 2 for 2. Especially going for second. So I figured I'd put him in this situation where he Sudden Strikes this Gladiator, using all his credits, and then I play out he Sudden Strikes the Swordfish using all of his credits, and then he doesn't have a countermeasure up. I can play Kitty Hawk, I can play Gladiator, plus if I draw another 1-drop like a Fiat or Swordfish, or a second Gladiator. He passes again. So I'm just going to attack. At this point, I think I probably could have played a Gladiator, but something that was going through my head was, like, just discard. Like, okay, so by this point, I'm, like, pretty certain he doesn't have Sudden Strikes. I know he doesn't run Flam Panzers. He kept 3 cards, none of which were Sudden Strikes, so I was, like, almost certain he had a careless talk by this point. Uh, so actually, I take that back. I do think not playing a gladiator there was the correct play. Something else I'm worried about is discard in the future. Discard is very good against air, especially if they're going first. I am going first, and I have no card draw in hand as of now. So I don't really want to get into a situation where I dump all of the cheap cards from my hand, and then he wolf packs and discards Empire Strikes, or I top deck a Lend-Lease at some point, but I've played all of the other cards in my hand. He does wolf pack and discards the Lend-Lease, because that's how you lose the game against your Italy. So here, he finally just does research, get rid of the bomber. So seeing that he's used all of his credits, same as the last game, I now play out 2 units credit efficiently, going face with the Kitty Hawk. And I did at this point, I briefly considered keeping Kitty Hawk, just doing double Gladiator, because Kitty Hawk can damage 989s. However, I was like, if he plays 989, I just answer with a Sexton. Which is exactly what I do. He does 989, I do Sexton, he does Hipper, I do Sexton again. And when I saw the Hipper, I assumed he didn't have his only tactical strike. I do think it was a little much. Like, I think I probably just would have Sexton, or done tactical strike, keep the Hipper in hand. I don't necessarily think that's an incorrect play, that's just... I think I probably would have just killed the Sexton as soon as it hit the board. That's just me. So here, unfortunately for me, the Sexton gets tactical strike. And he throws out the second 989. I'm not a fan of this. Like, I suppose the idea is next turn, if this 5-5 in the front line is like pinned or killed or retreated or something, on the following turn he can do Panther G, move up the 3-3, move up the 5-5. He can do Comet, kill the 1-3, move up the 3-3. He can do Panther G, move up the 3-3 attack. He can do Panther G, Mary Nostrum attack. He doesn't even have to move up the 3-3. However, there's also just a very good possibility that I set up some bombers and it dies to Empire Strikes before it ever reaches the front line, let alone it ever kills something. And it's very unlikely you're going to, like, I think it's more likely that it's not going to attack, like move up and then attack on the next turn. So I think it's a little weird to play the 3-3 here if you're not moving it to the front line on the same turn. So here I do my own credit denial of my own for the shelling, go face. He just pretty deftly removes the 1-3 with Comet. He's probably worried about like a suddenly like 2 or 3 casts coming out and I hit him down to like 4 health. So here is where I might have made a different play than other players. A lot of other players might have just done like Convoy to draw, Heresy on the Kitty Hawk trade with the 5-5. However, I saw that that probably put me into a losing position. So I go for this play. And I'm very proud of this play. I actually go face here even instead of attacking into the 3-2. So let me explain this play a little bit. At this point, I've seen Research and I've seen Tactical Strike, which are basically the only 2 cards in his deck, other than Annihilation and Decima, which can kill this Kitty Hawk, just from hand. So I know this Kitty Hawk is going to stick around as long as its health is below 4. So that's why I play the Heresy on it. Obviously, he could just sudden strike the Heresy. That would be annoying, but I've also am aware that he probably doesn't have Sudden Strike, or else he would have used it in the several turns. Where he had the opportunity to and did not. So the reason I go face here is I know he can do Mary Nostrum attack. If he does Mary Nostrum attack into the Kitty Hawk, okay, he used a Mary Nostrum, he healed 6. I traded 1 for 1, but also traded with the Mary Nostrum, so that's okay. I can live with that. It also means he's not discarding. He can just throw out an Annihilation and I risk having my Convoy discarded. However, that's just, you're not like removing the Gladiator, you're not attacking with the unit in the front line, you're not moving the other unit up. Just from my perspective, I don't think Tang would make that play. He really likes to develop his units and use units that are already developed. I don't think he would just like throw out a random Annihilation here. And I figured that he wouldn't go for this line of play. um, the line of play that he's currently going for, because I thought this threatened Empire Strikes. Like, the reason I don't kill the one in the back to just get value um, is I thought leaving up the 3-2 implies I have Empire Strikes in hand. And I do have Empire Strikes in hand. I did not have a Bomber. However, this Albacore top deck came in really clutch. However, I would argue that I was sort of suggesting I might have a hand like this to Tang, and he played into it. Now, it could be that he was just calling my bluff. He could just be like, okay, he's playing like this, but I don't think he actually has it, so I'm going to, excuse me, um, I'm just gonna, like, not play around it. Or it could be he just didn't see it, and I happened to have it. Like, the top deck and the Albacore were there was very fortunate. However, if that convoy was the Albacore and the other card, the Empire Strikes, and I was just setting up for that, and then that happened, you would call that a very good play to set up. So, take it how you will. Like, yes, I got lucky, but, sort of make your own luck situation. Now here, I did get very lucky in that Tang did not have any discard. If Tang had a Wolf Pack here, the game would just end. Like, he kills Kitty Hawk, he plays Wolf Pack to discard Convoy, and I lose the game unless my next card is Lend-Lease into Lend-Lease. However, that's not what he has. He does have Lurking Danger, so he does steal the Kitty Hawk with the JU. He actually just trades in this JU, and gets another fighter, which is blocking the Bomber. And here is where I get very lucky. I think people might overestimate just how lucky this is. Because again, I could have just drawn into like a Lend-Lease and like a I don't know, like a Lend-Lease Ultra to like prevent potential discard or something, and the Lend-Lease draws me into enough cards to win the game later. However, I will admit that this is a very funny series of events, just because it looks hilarious. Like, look at this situation. The only card in my hand is Convoy. He doesn't have discard. I top deck Spitfire, which is like, okay, it's a bit of a threat, but it's probably just going to die to like Dechuma if I just throw it out. And I'm not getting Fury because of the Kitty Hawk. And I play Convoy, and I draw Kitty Hawk. Sorry, I draw the Finest Hour, which means I'm now threatening to do the Spitfire Finest Hour. 2 cards, 10 credits, 12 damage if there's no planes and no guides. So I'm now threatening that. And the other card is Wrath, which lets me remove the fighter from board, which will set up Spitfire Finest Hour being lethal, as well as it lets the Bomber go face to bring him from 13 to 12. Like, this is just like a filthy series of just like synergistic draws, and just like the situation around it is just absolutely disgusting. Not to mention, the Wrath also eats the Careless Talk, which it does set up the Finest Hour. However, Tang would probably have preferred if I, like, for example, just played a Fiat. The Fiat dies to the Careless Talk, and then he doesn't have to play Root Out on the next turn. So, Tang plays Root Out, and in here, in this situation, Tang completely throws the game. Like, I don't want to say this. Okay, I shouldn't say it completely throws the game, because that it does imply, like, I'm not saying everyone, like, is this a mistake? Yes. I do believe this is just a mistake on the behalf of Tang. He should have played the Kitty Hawk. And he should have played the Kitty Hawk for a couple of reasons. One, just generally, Panther G is a little slow. Like, it's very vulnerable to just, like, being retreated or pinned or something. I suppose he has seen an Albacore, a Wrath, and Sexton, and Shelling. So I'm down most of my ways that deal with Panther G. I'll give him that. However, what is the only cards I could have that kill you this turn? The answer is Spitfire Finest Hour. And I have the exact amount of damage to do it. I have the exact number of credits to do it. And Kitty Hawk just stops that. Now, of course, he's worried about Lend-Lease. I would argue that I've shown very clearly I did not have Lend-Lease prior. So he knows one of the cards in my hand is not Lend-Lease. So the other one could be Lend-Lease. I could also top deck Lend-Lease. However, just looking at your hand, you have Mare Nostrum that you can heal with off of Comet on demand if you want. Comet's just going to respond to any unbuffed Swordfish or Gladiator. You have Lion for a day in case I just like throw out something big. You have Decisive Defense to stop potential burst in the future. So just get Kitty Hawk down on the board, play around the absolutely incredibly unlikely chance that I have Spitfire Finest Hour. Um, but instead, he plays the Panther A, Panther G, because it's more credit efficient. It's a bigger threat. It risks, or like it threatens just immediately killing any unit I play. It threatens healing 7 every turn. It's a very big threat. However, I have the exact counter on the exact turn he doesn't play around it, which lets me take game 2 by the skin of my teeth. Did I get incredibly lucky this game? Yes, I got ludicrously lucky. This is probably one of the luckiest games I've ever had in OCC. However, I still would have lost the game if Tang had played slightly better, and I 100% would have lost the game if I played slightly worse. So, take that as you will. We now get into game 3, which is my Soviet Germany. It's the last deck I have left, and Tang is going to bring Germany-Italy, because Germany-Italy is just going to crush him. Or crush me. Like, I cannot win this game. However, I am forced to play this matchup, so we get to experience just the absolute brutality of an anti-aggro control deck versus a heavy control deck. So in this circumstance, Tang keeps Annihilation, which is correct. You want to keep discard against my deck, especially when you're going second. 989 is good. It is just a generally good card. JU is pretty good. It's weak to Partisans, it's weak to Annihilations. Honestly, I wouldn't have blamed him if he kept King Tiger. I actually think maybe keeping King Tiger here is correct, especially with the 989 Annihilation JU hand. I think sending King Tiger back is a mistake. And on my hand, I'm just trying to get the heaviest, like, hand I can possibly get. So I keep Partisans, I keep Heroes to go for a big Heroes. I get back to 3 drops, not great. Better than Sudden's, draw the 45th. Again, not great. This Heroes is very disappointing. I was looking for like a Joseph Stalin, a 272nd, maybe a 6th Airborne, an ISU. Instead, I'm forced to pick Armored Train as the biggest card off of it, which is just disappointing. Here we see one of the strengths of Second Rifles is that it actually trades evenly with 989. He sends out the Tactical Strike, he plays 989. I play second Rifles. Well, I start with the Train. Yes, I leave the 1-1 unguarded. However, I did this for science. I was just like, I'm not going to win this game, probably, so I might as well show people. Not for science. I'm going to show people. The cards that summon the 1-1 dudes now always summon the tokens on the far right. So, before, if you played Armored Train on the left of the HQ, the 1-1 token would spawn between the HQ and the Armored Train, which meant your HQ would become unguarded. I just wanted to show people that, in case people hadn't realized that yet. So, was it a misplay? Yes, but it was an intentional misplay. Here, Tang just throws out the Panther G. This is one of the best cards in his deck, because my deck is largely based around order-based removal, and Panther G cannot be targeted by orders. So here, he just starts throwing out his discard. Discards Flame Panzer. Not the best card he could discard, not the worst card he could discard by far. And he just has this Panther G. Like, the 1-1 tokens can't deal with it. The first Rifles can't even trade with it. He throws out Second Annihilation, and it hits the best card in my hand, which is Partisans, so any chance that I could win this game has gone out the window. Now, the reason Partisans is the best card in my hand is, for example, if instead, for example's sake, Tang played this game very well, I would also like to point out. Like, he's specifically not playing the JU, because JU can be hit by Partisans, it can be hit by Annihilation. So on this turn, if instead of playing Annihilation, he had just played JU, because he was like, oh, I want to set up taking first Rifles, like set up a really greedy play, because he can do JU, and then on the following turn he can do Mare Nostrum on JU, kill first Rifles, now he has a first Rifles. That's very good. However, if he plays JU, I can do Partisans on JU, trade first Rifles into Panther G, trade JU into Panther G. I've now removed the Panther G, I've removed JU, and I get a Panther G into my hand, which is almost as annoying for him to deal with as it is annoying for me to deal with. So yeah, if he had played JU, he could have potentially thrown the game. Like, I think he would still be in a very winning position, but it would be it would be significantly harder for him to deal with. But unfortunately, he discards the Partisans, and then he draws a second Panther G, and he very correctly plays around Partisans, plays around Annihilations by not playing this JU, and he's just threatening to slowly beat me to death with these two massive tanks. Winter Offensive can deal with one of them and threaten to trade this 845th into the second one. However, his deck runs sudden strikes. His deck runs all sorts of cards. Like the odds this 989 hits the Panther G to kill it, incredibly low. So he just does Mare Nostrum, move up, attack. Now this does actually die to a handful of cards, like namely Winter Warfare. Just trades with it. Root Out would also kill it, but it would kill it regardless. So I just heal for 9, trying to delay the inevitable. These Annihilations can't be played, these Sudden Strikes can't be played, the Scorched Earth does essentially nothing. And Tang plays very well. Again, does not play the JU because it risks Partisan's trade. He does eventually, because he's at 9 cards in hand, play out the 989. Which means I could Partisans this. However, if I waste second Partisans on a 989, I'm not going to win the game anyways. I throw out an Annihilation to get discard going, hits Decimo, but it doesn't matter because his hand is just incredibly strong. ISU keeps me alive another turn. Africa Core picks up a second King Tiger. I can annihilate the second 989, but that leaves me with no response to King Tiger. And throw out one last Wolf Pack. It does not matter. This game could have ended as easily as him getting a second King Tiger on turn 2 off of Africa Core. Like, I literally cannot beat 2 King Tigers without discarding both of them. So, a very well played game by Tang. It's a game that I essentially could not win, regardless. And now we get into the matchups the Soviet-German deck was intended for, which is into decks like Air, decks like Self-Damage, decks like Jagro. Now, a couple things. One, that is the only game Soviet Germany lost all tournament. So other than that game, it went 3-0. It beat Air once. It beat Self-Damage once, and it beat US-German midrange once. So, Soviet-German deck, I thought it was the best deck I made, and honestly, it posted the best results out of all of my decks. Now, here, this is my opening mulligan, what I'm offered. 3 Sudden Strikes and a JU against Air. I just full kept, and I stand by that. Like, that is just absolutely insane. Now, paradoxically, Tang hit a very unfortunate hand, where he actually full mulligans, because his hand sucks, and he gets back basically an equally bad hand. So Tang's hand, he misses all 10 of his 1-drops. Like, he doesn't hit one of his 10 1-drops. However, if we look at my hand, any 1-drops he found would instantly die. And potentially even, I would, like, wait until a close air support comes out, so they would not only would they die, they would actually be going 2 for 1. Because I'm removing the unit and the buff. So paradoxically, him not having 1-drops is almost better. Obviously, it would be better if he had 1-drop, just because at one point in this game he has to play a Piracy, just to not mill a card. Now, arguably, he could just play Albacore instead, but he probably knows that I have Sudden Strike at this point. Like, I also full kept my hand, so he's certain I have at least 1 Sudden Strike. So we get to turn 5, I play JU, he plays Sexton, I play First Rifles. Now he can do second Piracy, like second Piracy, to kill JU with Sexton. However, that means Sexton immediately gets annihilated. He can throw another in-between move similar to that Hipper move we saw in Game 2. Where he throws out Shelling, just deny me a credit. I play second Rifles just to get a card out of my hand. Now he plays the second Rifles. I play Annihilation, which discards Empire Strikes. Now, discarding Empire Strikes is very good. However, there's not really a bad card. Like, Fiat is the only bad card for me to discard. If I discarded Finest Hour, I think it would probably even be better. Discarding Mosquito would have been definitely not bad. Discarding Lend-Lease would have probably been the best option. Discarding Convoy, again, not bad. Especially not knowing he has Lend-Lease in hand. So discarding Empire Strikes, it's good, but honestly might even be in the lower half of cards I could have discarded. Because I think Lend-Lease, Mosquito, and Finest Hour might have all been better than discarding Empire Strikes. So here, Mosquito comes out. There's the first sudden strike to kill the Albacore, and Scorched Earth to get these two Parasies in the front line. And this is what I mean by Scorched Earth is just the most broken card in the game. Like, why am I allowed to increase the operation of his units by a total 8? I spent 2 credits to force him to spend 8 credits to attack, 8 additional credits to attack every time he wants to attack with his units. And these ones have Fury, so that's an even increase. Like, it's if he wanted to attack with all of his units, instead of being able to attack with all of his units for 6 credits, he's now able to attack with all of his units for 20 credits. That is a 14 credit increase for 2. 2 plus the 2 credits, the 3 credits additional operation cost on my guard, but it's a guard I was probably not going to operate with it anyways. So yeah, Scorched Earth is just absolutely filthy. Also, nice, kind of interesting in-between move is I do Sudden Strike, then buy the sword, because it both gets a card out of my hand to drop me from 8 cards to 7 cards, and it gets a unit off board, which means buy the sword draws 3 instead of 4, which means I don't mill a card. So here, Tang's hand, at this point you would completely forget that he didn't have a strong early game, and I still have 2 Sudden Strikes in hand. So again, Tang's hand looks comically bad, however, it did not have an impact. Like, it did not have a particularly large impact on this game. I would have won this game absolutely anyways, based on my hand. So here, just sort of throwing out cards, removal, double Sudden Strike, root out, takes out most of the cards. And here he starts building somewhat threatening boards. Obviously, in this situation, he makes a very interesting play. And I'm going to both disagree with this play somewhat and explain why he did it. So here he does HMS, Illustrious, the Kitty Hawk close air support, and he goes face. Not only does he go face, he goes face with the Kitty Hawk as well. Is that true? No, that's not true. The Kitty Hawk cleans up the second rifles. And so he goes face, brings him from 16 to 12. Now, here's a couple of different ways to interpret this. One, he could be thinking, like, okay, whatever I play is just going to immediately be removed by Winter Offensive. I think this is the most likely outcome. He thinks I'm going to play Winter Offensive to clean up his 2 bombers, and that would make sense. If I had Winter Offensive, I would certainly consider it here. So, by going face, he's saying the second rifles is going to die to Winter Offensive anyways. If you play it, it's a full board wipe. I might as well go face. Also, if I play Winter Offensive, I stay at 12 health. I take 4 damage from the Winter Offensive, and then I heal 4 from the 845th. I stay at 12, which means I am now inside of range of Spitfire Finest Hour. So, if I just play Winter Offensive in this situation, I have to play around the fact that I could just immediately die. Another consideration is he is feigning Empire Strikes. He obviously does not have it. I've seen one discarded, but he could be threatening to just kill the second rifles with Empire Strikes in the future. He could just be thinking about raffing it in the future and basically just making me spend credits replaying this guard in the front line, or this guard in the support line, which can't attack his units and does not stop his bombers. So these are all the reasons why you might not kill the second rifles. However, I still think probably should have just killed the second rifles. Like, I think probably just, like, playing a little bit too crazy. And fortunately for me, I don't have to resort to any sort of Winter Offensive play, even if I had it in hand, because double Sudden Strike that I had in my opening hand since literally turn 1, I finally get to play these 2 other Sudden Strikes to kill the both bombers off of HMS. So here, Convoy, just gain access to more of his deck. And here, again, at this point, the previous play, from my perspective, going face, if we go back to this turn, when I saw him go face instead of kill the bomber, I was like, oh, is he maybe setting up for Spitfire Finest Hour? Like, that was something I considered, which is why one of the reasons I played the guards. Also, it's just sort of the only unit in my hand that I could play. And here, he rafts one of the guards, does close air support, and kills the other guard. Which means, even if I kill what's on board, I'm still in range to die to Spitfire, Finest Hour, Close Air Support, or Spitfire, Finest Hour, Mare Nostrum. Um, so I'm thinking about this. I thought he is setting this up. He was setting it up the previous turn by going face for 4 with the bombers. He is setting it up now by removing one of the guards, killing the other guard. So I thought for sure I need to play around the Spitfire. Now, there's a couple different plays I can make. One of the plays is this, Partisans. Now, there is no way to remove the board while playing entirely around Spitfire, Finest Hour, Mare Nostrum, Spitfire, Finest Hour, Close Air Support. But the closest thing I can get is Partisans, kill this, Red Banner. Now, there is 6 British units that cost 7. There is Manchester, Wellington, Lancaster, the 7 cost 3/7 ambush bomber that gets +4 attack on the opponent's turn. Fighter. I have no idea what that card is called. It's hilariously expensive. Churchill Havre, and of course the Coastal Howitzer, the Coastal Gun. Now, I rolled Coastal Gun, and I saw a lot of people in the casters were like, oh, that one's really good. Now he's going to be able to start healing up. Like, heal outside of range of potential Spitfire. My perspective, that is kind of what happened. I ended up only actually healing 3 health across the entire rest of the game. I only attacked with this once. My perspective when I saw this was I just lost the 2 in 3 chance to get an air unit. You can see I even emote a good day to die. I thought I was just going to die to Spitfire, Finest Hour, Close Air Support. I was actually missing 2 out of 3 of those pieces in hand. However, he was setting this up. So I thought, I'm just dead. So as soon as I saw the convoy, I was like, okay, he doesn't have it in hand. Which means I have time. I have time to replay the second rifles. I can get out of range. I can attack with this to heal. I can kill the 845th to heal. Because I only need to heal a little bit. Like, even just Spitfire, Finest Hour isn't enough. I figured that that's actually kind of what he had in hand. I thought he had Spitfire, Finest Hour not have Cass or Mare Nostrum. So here he actually pins the bomber, kills the 845th. And this potentially dangerous situation. The Yak top deck was very clutch. Otherwise, I would have probably had to use Partisans. So kill the Fiat with Flam, Yak. I get Montied, fully pinned support line, second Lend-Lease. I thought he was just going to set up like a massive bombers for an Empire Strikes board clear. Fortunately for me, he does not. He only has 1 bomber and does not have the second Empire Strikes. So here, I was thinking about just doing Partisans, Gladiator, like return this expensive bomber to hand, or not, the buffed bomber and 2-cost bomber to hand. I was even considering just Partisans pass. However, Scorched Earth draw is filthy, and it's just very good, obviously. However, in my head, I thought this was even better because I thought what I was doing is I was preventing him from trading off or moving up these the Gladiators, which means he wouldn't be able to reach a 4 damage or 5 damage Empire Strikes, is what I'm trying to say. So I thought, worst case scenario, he moves up 1, he plays Swordfish, second Albacore, although actually in retrospect, I think that is his second Albacore. Empire Strikes to deal 4 damage, and the Albacore takes off the Coastal Gun. But that is not what he has in hand. That is not what he does. He instead plays second Raft, returns Coastal Gun to hand, floods the board with more fighters. There's basically no way to save this Albacore, but it cost me 4 credits to remove it. So I thought a long time about various Partisans plays, but I realized that because my Yak is on the board, Spitfire does not get Fury, which means I'm not at risk of dying. I was thinking about, like, oh, what if he just, like, trades into the bomber? Or, sorry, he trades the RAF into the guard, moves up Fiat, Spitfire, Finest Hour. But that would not be enough for a couple different reasons. And here he picks up another Swordfish, but he's still missing that Empire Strikes. The Convoy's down to basically like no cards in his deck. He picks up the third Swordfish, second Empire Strikes. Now he just needs to make room on his board. So he trades off the Fiat, he trades off the one of the Gladiators, and he goes face for 3 with the Wrath, bringing me to 13 health. And at this point, I'm still like deeply worried about Spitfire Finest Hour, and that he does have it in hand by this point. He played one of the Finest Hours on the Albacore. However, I can take off 2 of his units, and the Armored Terrain draw, very clutch from my perspective. Like, it's obviously good. I was not at risk of dying again because of the yak. But I get to guard up, I get to heal a little bit with the Coastal Gun. And here comes Swordfish 1, Swordfish 2, Swordfish 3, Empire Strikes. He actually only plays 2 of the Swordfishes, which I thought Swordfish was going to be the last card in his deck. I'm still a little confused why he didn't play all 3. Because it was not about credit efficiency, was it? Oh no, sorry, I guess it is. The reason he didn't do it is because he wouldn't have been able to hold up Ultra. My bad. That does make sense. However, it means he uses the last Finest Hour, which means he can no longer blitz Spitfire, and I have several ways in my hand to deal with Spitfire when it reaches the board, which means I no longer have to deal about burn. I know every card in his deck, which is left, every card in his hand, which is left. I know there's Ultra, Sickle to trigger Ultra, and at this point, I don't even need the guard. Like, he's down Finest Hour. I can remove Spitfire as soon as it hits the board. It's deaf for attacking phase. I don't actually need my own Armored Train, so I do Winter Warfare ISU, remove all of his Romanian units, and Tang knows the game is over, because it even just dies to the ISU on board. Tang surrenders, and I take the OCC with a 3-1 victory. And yeah, those were the games. Those were my thoughts about how it went. I think Tang played very well. I just got more lucky than him, to be completely honest. However, I also think could have played slightly better here or there. I think he definitely could have won with Jur Italy into air, which would have led to a potentially completely different outcome. Because there is even the world where he beats my air 3 times in a row. Because if he wins air into Jur Italy, or his Jur Italy into my air, we then go into an air mirror, where it's essentially a 50-50 who wins. So if I lose that, he then has Jagro. He has 2 chances to win with Jagro, and again, Jagro is a pretty dependable deck if you just want to win a single game, which is why he always leaves it for last. However, that is not how that worked out. He did not play the Kitty Hawk. I did draw the Finest Hour Spitfire. Took game 2, took game 4, won the series. And yeah, that's basically how the OCC went. If you have any other questions you want to ask me, be it about any of the decks, specific plays, etc., anything entirely unrelated to the tournament, feel free to ask it in the comments or on my Discord. Again, I've said it before, but I'm going to be doing a video soon going over the patch review for the announced patch coming out early November. I'm going to be starting a series where I look at viewer games and basically analyze viewer games similarly to how I just analyze my own games, which will give you sort of advice if you want to send in your own games, or if you just want to watch other people's games. You can probably pick up on quite a few tips and tricks here and there for yourself. So if you want to submit your games, you can learn more about that on my Discord. And otherwise, yeah, have a nice day. Thank you for watching. If you got through this hour-and-a-half long video of just me talking about how good I am, if you want to take a very nihilistic view at it. And I'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.